All right, now today, y'all, we are going to be venturing into the world of curing meats. And I figured before I get too far into trying out some crazy stuff, let me just start off with making my very own homemade bacon. Now, in order to cure meat, of course, that means we're going to have to use premium pink curing salt #1, or also known as Prague powder. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on in the video. I'm also going to be using this bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup. I found this at Costco. And honey, it's absolutely everything. So I figured that would give it that nice maple flavor that I love when I have bacon, that sweet and salty, flavor. And for the spices, I'm going to be using a half a cup of coarse kosher salt, a half a cup of light brown sugar, and I'm also going to be using 1 tablespoon of roughly cracked black peppercorn. And for the pork itself, this is pork belly. Now, this is a little over 5 pounds. It's about 5 pounds and a quarter. And I found this at my local Amish market or my Amish butcher. And you want to try to make sure that you get it where you see, a decent amount of meat on the bottom so that it's all just not the fat cap. And as I was saying, earlier, you guys, in order to cure this, we have to use curing salt. Now, if you don't know anything about curing salt is sodium nitrate. So by itself, it is 100% toxic to humans. It is not something that you can consume on its own. So #1, make sure that you are storing this salt somewhere away from the kitchen so that no one mistakes it for pink Himalayan salt, because you do not want that to happen. So in that bowl, I added the salt, the brown sugar, the black pepper, and only 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of that curing salt is going to take care of this entire 5 pounds of meat that we're working with today. And I just simply followed the instructions that was on the back of the bag. Every curing salt might work a little bit differently, but, from what I understand, this is pretty much the rule of thumb, about 1 teaspoon per 5 pounds. So what I've done just now is I've gone and I've put in a nice thin layer of that maple syrup. And now I'm just going to make sure that I coat all the surfaces, the meat, the fat cap side, all of the sides completely covered in the salt, brown sugar, black peppercorn mixture. Now, once again, when you're working with curing salt, essentially what that's going to do, it's going to remove all of the water that is built within the cells of the meat, and that is going to stop any pathogens from growing, bacteria, fungus. It's going to essentially slow down that process. That is the reason why in grocery stores, a lot of meats are able to last for months at a time, because they are loaded with nitrates and preservatives and all that stuff. Now, for me, I'm only using 1 teaspoon and I'm not adding anything else to this. So, once I do finish this process, it will only last in the fridge for a couple of days. Because again, it's not coated with a bunch of preservatives and all that type of stuff. So I'm going to make sure that I freeze what I'm not using so that it'll have a much longer shelf life. So just keep all of that in mind. So I've just flipped it over. And again, making sure that I'm coating all of the sides. The only thing that I honestly would do different is the next time when I do this, I'm going to make sure that I season one side, place it inside of whatever the bag is that I'm going to use to store it in, and then season the other side. That way I can kind of eliminate some of the mess on the cutting board, because you want to make sure that you get all the seasoning in that bag, because you only are working with 1 teaspoon of that curing salt and you want every last bit of it in there. So, these are the things that you learn as you go along, as you go along the way of the process. Now, because this is 5 pounds, this is going to take 7 days to cure in my refrigerator. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer this over into a bag that can be sealed tightly. And then I'm going to place that into a pan, because over 7 days, there's going to be a lot of water that's going to be released. And every day, I'm going to make sure that I flip it at least once so that each side can make sure that it's being cured evenly and properly. So I'm going to transfer this over to a bag. I'm going to sit this inside of another pan, place this in my refrigerator, and over the course of the next 7 days, keep flipping it. And then we're going to come back in 7 days, and then we're going to pick it up from there, because we still have a few more steps to go, but we're almost there. All right, y'all. So it has now been 7 days, and each day I went in and made sure that I flipped it over so that it could cure properly. And as I told you guys, it was going to release a lot of liquid which is exactly why I said make sure that you sit it inside of a pan. So that way, if a hole or something gets punctured, you don't end up with a huge mess. Now, this next step is really important because you want to make sure that you don't end up with an overly salty slab of bacon. So now you need to transfer it over to the sink. And as you can see, it's cured up really, really nice. You can kind of tell if your meat has properly cured if you're able to touch it and it feels kind of like a piece of like cooked steak evenly. If it's not like too soft, you know that you've done well. But it's extremely important to make sure that you now go in and rinse this off thoroughly with cold water. You know, if you still see specks of the black peppercorn, that's totally fine. That's not really a concern. It's more so just making sure that you're getting off any of that excess salt that's still clinging onto it. Because again, you don't want to end up with, you know, an excessive amount of salt because pork is naturally salty. And because we cured it with all that kosher salt as well as the pink curing salt, you got to make sure you rinse that off. So now that we've done that, I'm going to transfer this over to a wire rack. And then I'm going to sit that wire rack on top of another tray. And then I'm going to go in and then pat this down with a paper towel just to remove any of the excess moisture. I'm going to do that to all the sides, front and back. Doesn't have to be bone dry because you are going to be putting this in the refrigerator to dry out, but this kind of gives it a good head start. And now for an additional bit of flavor, I'm going to go in with the Heath Rouse pecan rub. Now, you don't have to do this step if you don't want to. Some people put additional salt and pepper. Some people don't put any seasoning at all. But I figured why not just have that additional, you know, hint of flavor. So I'm going to use a light dusting of the pecan rub. I'm now going to place this in the refrigerator uncovered and let this sit to dry out for the next 24 to 48 hours. And then when we come back, it'll be finally time to put this bad boy in the smoker. I'll see y'all in 2 days. Good morning, beautiful people. Okay, so it is now day 8 of our bacon curing process. We're going to head over to the smoker and get that up to the temperature of about 200 degrees. The goal that we're looking for is the internal temperature of the meat to reach roughly about 145 to 150. And since this process will take roughly about 3 hours, I wanted to come out here pretty early. It's about 7:30 here in the morning now. And you want to allow the meat to fully cool down before you begin to slice it and start to fry it up. So I wanted to get out here and get an early morning start. So let's go over to the smoker. Okay, y'all. So I like to keep it real, and this is a full moment of transparency. Don't mind them stupid geese in the background. I know they hear me trying to do this video, but they just being loud. I made a rookie mistake. The last time I used my smoker, this water pan that you see here at the bottom, I left water in it, and like an idiot, I forgot to empty it out. And so you know what that means when you store water in a dry place, that means mold develops. So I just had to come out here and just do a whole degreasing, a whole sanitation to my smoker, which actually, in all actuality, is probably a good thing because that just means it got a really good deep clean. Like you can see clear through the window now. But just a little pro tip, if you ever do have to do a deep cleaning on your smoker and you use a degreaser, all you simply need to do is turn your smoker onto its highest setting, which I'm going to do in a few moments, and then let it run for about 15-20 minutes or until you see the smoke coming out running clear. And then I'm actually going to have to allow this to cool all the way back down before I put the bacon in it, because remember, I'm only smoking this bacon at 200 and I do not want it to be fully cooked, nor do I want that fat to render. I want the fat to stay, you know, solid. So I'm going to bring this all the way up to a high temperature, allow the smoke to run clear, 15-20 minutes, allow this to fully cool down, and then we will pick up where we left off. And for those of you that may be wondering about what pellets I'm using, this is actually going to be a combination of pecan and the competition blend. So I'm not going to be able to classify this as like an Applewood smoked bacon. This is actually going to have many different flavors, which I'm actually really excited about. But that bottom layer there is mostly pecan. The top layer is competition blend. So this is only going for 3 hours. So more than likely it's going to be more heavier on the pecan side. All right, y'all, so my bacon has been resting in the refrigerator uncovered for the last 24 hours. I've now put my meat thermometer inside, and now I'm just waiting for my smoker outside to get down to 200, and then we can plop this bad boy inside. All right, y'all, so I've now placed my bacon inside of my smoker. I'm actually going to be doing it at 175, but because I have my meter probe in this, I'll be able to really track what's going on with the temperature of the smoker itself. And like I said, I'm wanting the temperature to get to about 150 internal. All right, y'all, so I want to give you guys a quick little update. I don't want to keep this open for too long, but let me let you know what's going on here. So right now, the ambient temperature inside of this smoker is reading a little over 150. I want the internal of this meat to reach 150. It's currently only at about 119. So I'm gonna close this back up, continue to do its thing. If you look at the pan there, you barely see any mess down there, which is good, because that means that the fat cap is not melting, which we don't want. So everything is looking great so far. Let me close it back up, and I'm just gonna keep letting it go for a few more hours. All right, y'all, so my bacon is just now, I would say, about 2 degrees away from hitting 150. So let me explain to you what I'm going to be doing in the next steps. As soon as this hits 150, I will be taking this inside of my house, allowing this to come down to room temperature. Once it hits room temperature, I will then wrap this up in cling film and then place it in my fridge overnight. Now, allowing this to fully rest overnight will not only help lock in all the flavor, but it'll make it a whole hell of a lot easier to slice it. So the next time you guys see me will be tomorrow morning when it is time to slice this beauty up. But as you can see, it turned out absolutely fabulous. Like, it looks like bacon that just hasn't been sliced yet. And this cooked for 7 hours, and the temperature on the inside was ranging between about 150, 155 throughout the duration of that time. All right, y'all, so this bacon has been in the refrigerator overnight for about the last 24 hours or so, which is gonna make it a whole lot easier for me to slice this up. So let me go on ahead and wrap this, and then we can finally see what the final outcome is going to be. Okay, so I'm gonna first start off by cutting this down right down the middle, just so that I can see what the cross section looks like, because I really wanna be able to see if that pink cure went through the way that we hope it did. All right, y'all, this is gonna be the money shot, so let's see. And that, my friends, look at that. That's bacon. We did that. Look at that. Perfectly pink. That means that the pink curing salt permeated the meat evenly the entire time during the 7 days. So now, let's slice it up. Perfect. And the only reason it's a little tough is because, of course, I decided to leave the rind on because, well, why would I take that off? But that's, that's totally fine. This is gonna help guide by using this little cutting board here so that I can end up with a perfect little slice of bacon. So let me show you guys what I got going on. And then we are in business. One of the key things that I learned in the process of making this is that although I definitely will always keep the fat cap on the bacon, what I would suggest is before you begin slicing your bacon, take a really, really sharp knife and remove the rind. It'll just make it a whole lot easier for you to slice it. And I learned that about halfway through because you really don't need the rind anymore at this point. But that was something that I learned along the way. So, yeah. All right, y'all. So now I have this all packaged up. I have all of my bacon nicely labeled, all in the vacuum seal packs so that I know when it was made, when it will expire. I'll be keeping all of these in my freezer. And then what I'm going to be eating fresh this week, I have in a container here that I would just put the lid on and then have that throughout the week. And that, my friends, is homemade bacon. Boy, I cannot believe that I made this. Let's go in for a taste test, child. It is early as hell in the morning, but we're going to go in for the taste test. Here we go. Crunch time. Oh, I be damned. This is bacon. It is not too salty. You can taste the smokiness. My fast and made bacon. Oh, and why does it taste better than the stuff in the stores? I cannot believe I made this. I be damn. I did that.